Imagine a normal $160 grocery run. Milk, eggs, chicken, vegetables, cereal, enough food to get through the week. At checkout, the screen offers another way to see that same price, $40 today. The cart still costs $160. A typical pay-in-4 plan simply moves the other $120 into 3 later $40 payments. For a couch or a laptop, that is easy to understand because the purchase happens once and the payments continue afterward. Groceries are different. The food gets used up and the next grocery trip arrives before the first payment schedule is finished. So keep the grocery bill at $160 every week and watch the cash flow. In week 1, only $40 leaves the account. Week 2 brings another grocery trip and another $40 first payment. At first, the plan really does create breathing room. Week 3 is where the overlap begins. The first cart wants its second $40 payment, while the third cart wants its first $40 payment. That week, $80 leaves the account. By week 5, 3 grocery plans can be collecting at once, bringing the weekly outflow to $120. By week 7, 4 plans can overlap, and the weekly outflow can reach $160 again. The cart never became a $40 cart. The timing benefit filled up. Now the household decides to stop using BNPL and pay cash again. That sounds like the obvious fix. But stopping new plans does not cancel the old installments. In week 8, 3 older $40 grocery payments can still be due. That is $120 for food bought in previous weeks. The household also needs another $160 grocery trip, and this time it pays the full amount in cash. So the grocery-related cash leaving the account that week can reach $280. No giant interest charge is required. No hidden fee has to create it. The number appears because today's groceries are being paid in full, while yesterday's groceries are still finishing their payment schedule. Week 9 can look the same before the old installments finally begin to burn off. That is the first big money reveal. Pay-in-4 made the beginning easier, but leaving the system required extra room. Notice what the math is not saying. A $160 grocery habit did not somehow become a $640 grocery habit because 4 plans overlapped. Once the schedule reaches a steady rhythm, the weekly scheduled payments can settle back near the same $160 the household was already spending. The pressure comes from timing. Inside the schedule, old installments and new first payments replace one another. During the exit, today's full grocery bill collides with obligations created by earlier grocery trips. That is why the $280 week matters. It is not proof that pay-in-4 always makes groceries more expensive. It shows how a recurring expense can borrow room from future paychecks and then demand that room back when the household tries to return to cash. Which raises the more important question, why would anyone use this for food in the first place? For some people, the answer is simple convenience. If the shopper already has the money, has stable income, and prefers to spread the timing, pay-in-4 can be perfectly manageable. It may even be cheaper than carrying the same purchase on a high-interest credit card. So the product itself is not the whole story. The important difference is whether the shopper already has the full $160 or needs the $40 option, because $160 does not fit today. That is where the Federal Reserve data changes the meaning of the checkout screen. Among people who used Buy Now, Pay Later, 20% said they had used it for groceries or food delivery. That is not 20% of all Americans. It is 20% of BNPL users. The statistic matters because it tells us the grocery example is not just a hypothetical edge case. Then comes the number that changes the story. Among the BNPL users who used it for groceries or food delivery, 45% said the main reason was that it was the only way they could afford a purchase. Now, the same $40 button means 2 different things. One shopper sees $40 today and thinks, I would rather spread this out. Another sees $40 today and thinks, this is the only version of the bill that fits before payday. The first shopper is rearranging cash that already exists. The second is asking future income to help pay for food being eaten now. That is the real affordability split. At checkout, affordable can mean, can I complete this transaction today? For a household budget, the better question is, how much room is left before the next paycheck? Pay in 4 can answer the first question without answering the second. That is enough to explain why a payment can be approved, paid on time, and still reduce flexibility. Now take the same idea away from one checkout screen and put it on a calendar. Suppose the account shows $300 on Monday morning. That looks like $300 of room. But if three $40 BNPL payments are scheduled before the next paycheck, $120 is already committed. The app still says $300. The household has closer to $180 of uncommitted room before rent, gas, utilities, or anything unexpected gets another turn. The payment is small. The calendar around the payment may not be. That distinction becomes more important when more than one BNPL plan is active. A Consumer Financial Protection Bureau study using 2022 data from 6 major BNPL firms found that about 63% of BNPL borrowers had multiple simultaneous BNPL loans at some point during the year. That study was not specifically about groceries, so it should not be treated as a grocery-specific estimate. Its job here is narrower. It shows why one $40 installment can be the wrong object to stare at. The household does not experience one checkout decision at a time. It experiences every scheduled payment that reaches the same bank account. That changes the money object from a payment to a calendar. And once the calendar becomes crowded, the next question is not whether each payment looks small. It is whether the account has enough margin when several of them arrive together. The Federal Reserve gives us one consequence of that collision. In the same survey, 26% of BNPL users said they had been late on at least one payment, and 11% said a BNPL payment had triggered an overdraft or non-sufficient funds fee at their bank. That does not prove BNPL causes financial stress. It shows what can happen when an automatic installment lands in an account with almost no margin left. The problem is not that $40 is enormous. The problem is that the same $40 may already be needed somewhere else. Rent does not move because a grocery installment is due. The electric bill does not care that the payment looked small at checkout. And the next grocery trip arrives whether the last one has been fully paid off or not. That is why groceries expose the timing problem so clearly. A couch does not need to be bought again next Tuesday. Food does. If future income is closing this week's grocery gap, the same decision can return next week while the previous solution is still collecting. At that point, Pay in 4 is doing more than spreading a purchase. It is bridging a recurring cash flow gap. That bridge can still be useful. If the alternatives are leaving needed food behind, paying another bill late, or carrying a high-interest credit card balance, an interest-free pay-in-4 plan may be the least expensive short-term option. That is why calling every grocery BNPL user careless would miss the point. The decision can make sense in the moment, but a bridge does not create new income on the other side. It moves the timing of the gap. The reason that bridge can feel valuable is not mysterious either. Households are not deciding about groceries in isolation. In the Federal Reserve's 2025 survey, 19% of adults said their spending had exceeded their income in the previous month. That does not mean those households were using BNPL, and it does not make BNPL the cause of the gap. It gives us context for why moving part of a necessary purchase into the next paycheck can feel useful. The product is solving a timing problem that already exists. And because groceries repeat, the solution itself can become part of the next timing problem. And recurring gaps have one uncomfortable feature. They come back before the old solution is finished. The product can also feel less like borrowing because it is increasingly presented as an ordinary checkout option. In March 2025, DoorDash announced a partnership with Klarna that included Pay in 4 for groceries, retail purchases, meals, and an annual Dash Pass plan. That announcement does not tell us how many people actually finance food. The Federal Reserve survey is better evidence for that. What the DoorDash example shows is how normal the credit decision can look. There may be no separate trip to a lender. There may be no long application that makes the shopper stop and think, I am borrowing money for dinner. The option can simply sit beside the price. Pay $160 or pay $40 today. Those two numbers answer different questions. $160 answers, what does this purchase cost? $40 answers, what does this purchase require from my account right now? For a shopper with plenty of cash, those questions may lead to the same decision. For a shopper trying to make it to payday, they may not. That is why the smaller number can feel like affordability even when the full price has not changed. It solves the problem in front of the shopper. It does not guarantee that the next paycheck has room for the rest. So why are some Americans paying for food in 4 installments? Part of the answer is convenience, but for many grocery and food delivery users in the Federal Reserve data, the full purchase simply does not fit today. Pay in 4 is not making food cheaper. It is borrowing room from future paychecks. Return to the original $160 grocery cart. The screen says $40 today. That number tells you what leaves the account now, not how much future cash has already been promised. The groceries can be eaten within a week, while the final installment can still be 6 weeks away. Once food is being stretched across future paychecks, the number that matters most is no longer $40 today. It is how much room is left when next week's cart arrives.